The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates.
The Rick Jensen Show on 101.7 FM, 1150 AM, WDEL, and streaming to your smart speaker and mobile device.
When I talk about Dan White and Associates and saving, investing for your retirement, I often say, and how annoying it is that the value of your investments can be affected just by something that somebody says in the news. Hence, war in Iran. And it's always good to have someone to guide you through this. This is why I'm very pleased to be a client of Dan White and Associates. You can give them a call at 888-690-8800. I've relied on these guys for their knowledge and, I say, just brilliance for many, many years. And, highly recommend that you do, too. Dan Simon is one of the financial advisors specializing in retirement income. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
I am doing all right, Rick. Good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, just peachy. Never a dull moment in my business. Yeah. But, what about you guys?
We've got something to talk about, right?
Yeah, I know. But it's a real roller coaster. I mean, we were also talking about, what's the definition of decimated? And we're thinking like 50%, 60%. Somebody said, no, it actually comes from Latin deca. It means 10%. And I'm thinking, well, then my 401k is decimated. Down over 10%. But right now, I mean, this is a hell of a roller coaster ride. And if you are within just a few years of retiring, I mean, if you haven't balanced out your investments well, this could be really, really frightening, couldn't it?
Rick, it's it's a little. Pardon me, I got some allergies that I'm fighting right now. It's very interesting what's going on with the markets overall right now with the war in Iran. We've essentially seen a V-shaped recovery. I mean, the markets are essentially at an all-time high at this moment. Where does it go from here? The uncertainty is what I find concerns people as they're approaching and transitioning into retirement. So while I could probably sit on the phone and talk to you for about an hour about the markets, I'm not going to do that because we don't have an hour. But I thought it might be a good idea to just discuss something that, I see from time to time, and I hear people share their opinion, right, which is usually complaining.
Yeah.
But, it's in regards to one of the biggest expenses that I see people have in retirement. And it's not, a mortgage or travel. It's actually taxes.
Yeah.
So what we try to get ahead of and help people avoid is, not allowing taxes to be their biggest expense or one of their largest expenses in retirement. And what I found is that, when people are planning for retirement, ultimately what we're doing is putting aside money and allowing the markets to do what the markets do. And that's helped build wealth long term. However, people often forget that it's just as important to focus on how that money is taxed when you take it out. So when we think about 401ks, traditional IRAs, those are tax deferred and not tax free. So that means every dollar that you withdraw is taxed as ordinary income. And, once you hit required minimum distribution age, which is either 73 or 75, depending upon when you were born, the IRS actually decides how much you have to take out, whether you need it or not. So while starting early and accumulating is a fantastic decision, I think we also need to take into consideration how can we be smart about diversifying at the tax level when we start drawing income from these accounts. So,
right.
Tax deferred are going to be IRAs, 401ks, but then we got tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs, and then consider non-qualified investments as well, which, you're looking at capital gains tax there, 1099 interest, but it gives you the flexibility to control your income and potentially stay in a lower income tax bracket in retirement, which, ultimately for most folks is the objective.
Well, I know, like, for example, stockbrokers wince and complain at the word annuity, but my gosh, it exists for a very good reason. I have that. I have one. And, it's building up, tax deferred, and then a lot of them are constructed in such a way that you can get, I guess currently about 8%. Mine was, I think, 10%. If you indeed structure the payout of that in such a way, I think that's an important part of. There can be a really important part of this as well, don't you?
It can be, yeah, and absolutely. We, as you know, we use annuities when appropriate.
Yeah.
The products have attributes to solve problems.
Yeah. Well, also, let me say this. I'm going to interrupt to say this too. Also, you check the state guidelines, but they're insured like the FDIC, and you've got like state insurance guarantees on these things, and so I like that as well.
There is. You've got the State Guarantee Association backing a portion of the value that you may have inside of an annuity. I look at it a little different. I mean, they're products, and products can be placed in a non-qualified account, and as a product, annuities are tax-deferred vehicles by nature. They can also be utilized inside of Roth IRAs for tax-free income or inside of an IRA. I look at it more of if someone doesn't have a pension and they desire some type of secured or guaranteed income, then that's generally where we're gravitating towards there. And when the income's taken care of, I feel as though, with a secured income, with Social Security, a pension, or maybe even an annuity income that's guaranteed by the underwriting insurance carrier, it frees up a retiree's, other capital, so to say, to participate freely in swings in the market that we're seeing now if they're desired to tolerate risk, not having to worry about, if the Strait stays closed for another 3 months and I've got to take withdrawals out of my IRA to meet my income need, I don't know what the value of that account's going to be. So it might be a 5% withdrawal rate. It could be a 7% withdrawal rate. Whereas if you've got money allocated for the income that you need, it can really play a really good piece in the puzzle, so to say, to free up other assets to participate in the market.
But I don't think that's why you called in, though.
It's not. It's not. I was really talking more about taxes and getting ahead of it, right? Because a lot of times people start to think about taxes in retirement 3, 4, 5 years out from retirement, and for most people, that's when they're making the most money in their career. And it's, hey, should I do a Roth conversion? Well, is your income going to be lower when you retire or higher when you retire? And the majority of the time, hey, our income's going to be lower, so then a Roth conversion may not make sense right now. It's obviously an individualized decision, but we got to be cognizant of where we're placing retirement funds when we're making those contributions. And does it make sense to diversify it not only at the asset level but at the tax level as to what's the taxability of that withdrawal going to be when we're relying on those funds for income when the paycheck stops?
Yeah, when the paycheck stops. So you got to take all that into consideration. I'm glad look, it's important to think about, and I'm glad you guys call in right after the news at 1:30. Thank you, Dan.
And the other thing, Rick, is it's probably, I'd be remiss not to point this out, but Social Security and the taxability of Social Security is based upon your other income in retirement. So if you're relying solely on IRA income to fund your lifestyle over and above Social Security, it's likely going to make your Social Security benefits more taxable. So when we factor in Social Security income, provisional income equation that determines the taxability of Social Security, I think it puts a little bit more emphasis on why we need to plan ahead for diversified income streams in retirement at the tax level.
Yeah, that's a phrase some retirees hate to hear. 85% of your Social Security benefits are taxed.
Depending upon how much income you have. Let's clarify that. So not everybody's paying taxes on 85% of their Social Security. And in fact, with the new standard deduction, increases in standard deduction, increased benefits for those 65 and older, many Americans are, in fact, not paying any income tax.
Oh no, that's
in my opinion is a great thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. That's the complaint that I have heard. Actually, I'm thinking, well, you know what? Another friend of mine once said, if you're paying a lot in taxes, that means you're making a lot of money.
That's usually the case. But you know what? More and more people are coming to my office saying, hey, I got a refund for my taxes. This is great. So these are all positives.
And you can call Dan at 888-690-8820, 888-690-8820. Dan White and Associates. And Dan White himself has On the Money. It's a program here on WDEL, Sundays at 7 a.m., 101.7 FM, and 1150 a.m. Dan?
You got it.
All right, have a great day.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Take care. All right, Dan Simon, great guy.